The biting wind whipped stray pages of the crumpled newspaper around Elias's face, a grim memento of a world that had so violently exhaled its last breath. He squinted, the flickering neon sign of Lucky Ace's supplies a beacon in the encroaching twilight. This wasn't just any supply run, it was his lifeline. The world outside the dim glow of his flashlight was a symphony of groans and shuffling feet. Project Zomboid, it was called. Now, it was just the dead. But Elias had a secret weapon, a bizarre twist of fate woven into the fabric of this dying reality. The balatro mod, it was as incongruous as a tuxedo at a funeral, a game within a game, a digital escape hatch in a world designed for brutal survival. He ducked into the alleyway, the stench of decay a familiar perfume. The entrance to Lucky Ace's was a gaping maw of shattered glass. Inside, the shelves were mostly bare, picked clean by desperate survivors or ravaged by time. Yet, tucked away in a dusty corner, sat a solitary, humming terminal. The balatro interface pulsed with a tempting, almost mocking, blue light. His immediate goal wasn't food or water, not yet. It was chips. And multipliers. And the sweet, sweet sound of virtual currency clinking into existence. He sat on an overturned crate, the wrapper from breakfast crinkling in his pocket. The balatro hand appeared on the screen, a familiar 2 of hearts, a 7 of spades, a jack of clubs, a king of diamonds, and a 3 of hearts. A pair of hearts. Pathetic. The score quota for this blunt was a measly 50. Elias sighed. The zombies outside were a constant, gnawing threat, their numbers swelled by restless spirits, their resilience unnervingly amplified. And the world? Vehicles were rusted husks, gasoline a precious, near mythical commodity. Scarcity was the new normal. But balatro offered a different kind of scarcity. The scarcity of good cards, of strategic decisions, of the right joker to unlock obscene multipliers. He had to play his hand, or rather, how he played it. He started with a basic strategy, aiming for pairs, then straights, anything to get the score ticking upwards. The 2 and 3 of hearts formed a pair, netting him a meager 6 chips. The quota was still a distant mountain. But then, the magic of balatro began to unfurl, amplified by the mod's integration. The score he earned wasn't just digital points, it translated into tangible supplies. He bought a joker card with his initial earnings. Hickory stick plus 1 chip for every spade played. Not revolutionary, but in a game of incremental gains, it was a start. He played a small flush, boosted by the hickory stick, slowly chipping away at the score. The groans outside intensified. A shuffle of feet echoed from the main street. Elias ignored them, his focus solely on the digital cards, on the dance of suits and ranks. This was his sanctuary, his engine of survival. The first real breakthrough came with a steel card, a joker that gave a multiplier if it was in his hand. He found it on a subsequent run through a derelict pawn shop, its metallic sheen glinting under his flashlight. He had been lucky to find it, and luck was a commodity he desperately needed. With the steel in play, every successful hand that included it saw a significant boost. He started modifying his deck. A Celestia card found in a dusty library allowed him to change a 7 of spades into a 7 of hearts. Suddenly, that pair of hearts became a much more potent 3 of a kind, thanks to the increased chip value. Another Celestia card, this one a seal of fortification, added a permanent +1 chip to every card in his deck. Small victories, but they were the bricks and mortar of his survival strategy. The score accumulated. 50 chips became 100, then 500, then 1,000. The balatro interface had a shop tab, and with each cleared quota, Elias could access it. His first purchase, after securing a handful of basic canned goods and a water bottle from an overturned car, was a can opener. A simple item, but its absence would have rendered his initial food supply useless. Then came a lighter, then a box of matches. Basic necessities. The game, or rather the mod, allowed him a generous amount of time between zombie waves. It recognized the need for strategic planning and resource management. He could spend a good 20 minutes, sometimes more, immersed in balatro, building his score, before the real world demanded his attention. He was starting to formulate a long-term plan. The initial safe house, a dilapidated shed behind a boarded-up grocery store, was vulnerable. He needed better defenses. He needed electricity. He needed a truly reinforced base. With his balatro earnings, he bought a basic generator, a jerrycan of gasoline, a precious find from a wrecked ambulance, and a handful of electrical wire. These were the late-game items, the things that separated mere survival from a semblance of comfort. He experimented with glass cards and balatro. These offered a colossal multiplier, but they had a chance of breaking if played. He had lost a valuable hand once, the triumphant score vanishing with a shattered virtual pane. He learned his lesson. Glass was for high-risk, high-reward plays when the score quota was particularly daunting. His deck in balatro was slowly transforming. He had a few stone cards, adding a substantial chip bonus. A gold card, which granted him a small amount of in-game currency when it was in his hand. He even had another steel card, stacking multipliers. But his favorite was the gambler, a joker that gave a massive chip bonus if he managed to play a pair of aces. He had been hoarding aces, waiting for the perfect moment. One evening, as the sun bled crimson across the bruised sky, Elias felt a surge of confidence. He had established a perimeter around the shed, reinforced with hastily scavenged planks of wood. He had a small stockpile of non-perishable food and a gravity water filter. Now was the time for the big push. He sat at the terminal, his hands steady. The balatro game was in full swing. His deck was a well-oiled machine. He had a pair of aces, 2 of them, in his hand. He had the gambler in play. He had a steel card. And a seal of fortification on his aces. He played the pair of aces. The screen exploded with numbers. The gambler's bonus was astronomical. The steel card added its multiplier. The seal's base chip bonus kicked in. The score quota, which had been a daunting 5,000, was shattered. He had cleared it in seconds. The shop offered him the grand prize, a functioning car battery, a new set of tires, and, most importantly, a handful of basic crafting recipes for reinforced walls. He grabbed them, his virtual hands trembling with excitement. He emerged from the shed, the air thick with the stench of the undead. They were closer now, drawn by the faint hum of the terminal. A small horde shuffled into view, their vacant eyes fixed on the weak light emanating from lucky aces. Elias sprinted, balatro supplies clutched in his backpack, the weight of their potential almost a physical burden. He reached his makeshift workshop, the skeletal frame of a fortified wall already in place. The car battery was a lifesaver, allowing him to start hot wiring the few functional vehicles he had managed to find and cannibalize. The next few in-game days blurred into a furious cycle of scavenging, crafting, and defending. He used the reinforced wall recipes, painstakingly building a formidable barrier around his growing base. He learned to siphon gasoline, turning wrecked cars into fuel depots. He managed to get the generator running, bathing his small compound in the defiant glow of electric light. The zombies were a constant nuisance, a relentless tide. He spent hours fending them off with a rusty pipe wrench, his stamina depleting, his fear a cold knot in his stomach. But each time a horde breached his outer defenses, he retreated to the more secure inner compound, the reinforced walls holding firm. Balatro remained his ace in the hole. When his supplies dwindled, when the risk of a supply run became too high, he had retreat to the terminal. He had play a few hands, aiming for specific jokers, carefully managing his deck. He had acquire enough chips to buy a new can of beans, a box of bullets for the shotgun he had found, or even a rare spare part for his generator. He even managed to find a stone card for his deck. He had bought it with a substantial score, and now, every hand he played, every card he dealt, was infused with its extra chip bonus. He was now aiming for higher score quotas faster, unlocking even better supplies. He had been able to acquire a working radio, picking up faint distress calls, and weather reports, a small but vital connection to a world that had once been his. One particularly brutal night, a massive horde descended. The relentless pounding on his reinforced walls was deafening. He was running low on ammunition, his pipe wrench was chipped, and his stamina was in the red. Despair began to creep in. He scrambled to the terminal. His balatro hand was terrible. A pair of 3 seconds, a 9, a queen, and a king. The quota was high. The undead were breaking through. He needed a miracle. He played the pair of 3 seconds. Minimal chips. He needed more. He had a spiky dice joker in play, which enraged the difficulty, but gave more chips. He needed to take risks. He had a glass card that he had been saving, one with a high multiplier, and a high chance of breaking. He played his 9, then his queen, then his king. Then, he played the glass card. The screen flared, a dazzling explosion of light and numbers. The score skyrocketed. The sound of breaking glass echoed in his ears, but it was quickly drowned out by the triumphant cha-ching of virtual currency. The quota was met. He scrambled to the shop, his heart hammering. He bought a box of shotgun shells, a first aid kit, and a rare high-capacity magazine. He barely had time to reload his shotgun before the first of the undead burst through the weakened outer wall. The fight was desperate, a maelstrom of gunfire and guttural roars. But this time, he was prepared. The new ammunition, the medical supplies, they turned the tide. He held the line, Elias the lone survivor in a world of the dead, armed not just with scavenged weapons, but with the improbable power of a poker deck builder. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Elias stood amidst the carnage. The base was secure, albeit battered. He was exhausted, bruised, and covered in grime. But he was alive. And thanks to the bizarre, life-saving quirk of the balatro mod, he knew he had lived to see another sunrise. The game within the game had become his survival game. And he was, against all odds, winning.